Adding Julian Lewis is going to help Deion Sanders in Colorado recruit the high school ranks much better.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into the portal. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime recruiting analyst and college football writer. Thank you for making the portal your first listen each and every day. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head over to FanDuel.com to get started. Today, we're going to talk about Colorado and their ability to now really navigate the high school ranks. Deion Sanders and the Buffs found a way to get Julian Lewis, one of the most coveted prospects in the class of 25, and being a polarizing player from Georgia that plays quarterback, that's going to open the eyes of a lot of other recruits. And I guarantee you that high school recruits around the nation already knew about Colorado, but Julian signing on, that's going to help more Buffs end up in Boulder, players that otherwise, quite honestly, probably would have went elsewhere. To help me discuss this topic, I bring in Kevin Borba, Locked On Buffs. And I tell you what, Kevin, thank you very much for stopping in, by the way. I appreciate it. Colorado is a program I really didn't know where it was going because when they first started, they signed like 8 guys the first year Deion was there, something like that. And I'm like, I don't know if that's going to work. They added more players this year. Plus, they got Julian Lewis. They got London Merritt, who was originally Ohio State commitment. They got Quentin Gibson, one of the fastest players out of Texas. Antonio Branch out of Miami. They're a little bit of everywhere. Mm-hmm. They've started to kind of get in to the mix with a lot of players. Do you think it's because they won a lot more this last year? Like, how did they finalize on these recruitments?
Yeah, I don't think winning games hurts anyone, right? I think winning more than 4 games is a big deal. But in reality, I think it was a multitude of things. I think it was the on-field success. I think Coach Prime sort of instilled a vision, and we saw that work, right? The first year it was, I'm going to bring in all these transfers and we're going to win games and see what happens. And they won games at first, and then that fell apart. And it was like, okay, we lost the vision. And he came back, got more experienced transfers, and he kind of pitches recruits. And I think this is a big deal for recruits. And you know, as well as anyone, they all want to play right away, right, Brian? Like every recruit thinks they're going to whatever school they're going to play right away. But Deion Sanders has this, he has proof in the pudding, right? He's played true freshman. Jordan Seaton started at left tackle right away. He's played freshman all over the place. And so his sort of recruiting pitch has changed to, I target guys who I know will come in and make an impact. And so I think for the recruits that aren't scared or worried about developing right, or like sitting behind someone, I don't want to say developing, but who aren't worried about sitting behind someone, Colorado is an intriguing place because you get to play for Deion Sanders, and more likely than not, you're going to be thrown into action. And I think that's a huge deal. And also, like you said, winning 9 games doesn't hurt.
No, they were a pretty exciting team, and their defense improved quite a bit. They had some ups and downs and clunkers like anybody else, but vastly improved. And again, like I said in the opening, I think signing Julian Lewis is a big deal. He's a guy that's going to play some, maybe even help them quite a bit. And that's where I come into my big question. Mm-hmm. Do you think Colorado, in a league that's just wild anyway, Big 12 is so open every year, man. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you think this year or maybe the year after they can win the Big 12? Or are they on that doorstep? What's your thought?
Yeah, I think for sure within the next couple of years. I don't know about next year specifically because obviously losing Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter is a really big deal. They also lost their top 4 receivers. We'll put it that way. You lose a corner in Travis Hunter, who's probably the best in college football. And so he also happens to be the best or one of the best receivers in college football. So that's a lot of talent to lose. You lose the best quarterback in college football, at least from my perspective. He was one of the more consistent ones. And so I think there's going to be a little bit of a drop-off. FanDuel released their win total projections, and Colorado's at 6.5. So basically FanDuel is saying, are they going to win 7 games or are they going to win 6 games, right? That's kind of what that middle ground is. And so I think they very much could contend, right? I think they were not stumbling on their face and losing to Kansas away from contending for the Big 12 title this year, right? If they don't lose that game, they win their last week. They're in the Big 12 title and they're playing for a college football playoff. So they realistically came within 1 game away from contending for the Big 12 or for playing for a Big 12 title and contending for the playoff. I think they could do it within the next couple of years. I think whether Julian Lewis starts or not this year or plays a lot this year, you get him back for year 2, which these days is always a big question with recruits who don't play right away. But I think he'll have the foundation around him to really contend. And the Big 12, like you said, it's a disaster. It's a cluster, as they say. And so all it takes is, I think the final week of Big 12 action, there was about 8 teams who had a path, quote unquote path, to the Big 12 title, where it was like, okay, if this team loses, we win, and this team loses 5 points, and then this team doesn't tie their shoe at the 20-yard line, they get in. So for Colorado, it's very likely. There's a great chance that they could get in either this year and especially the year after, with Julian Lewis having a year under his belt.
To that point, here's a sub question for you. It helps to have quarterback depth. Like, hypothetically, if Sanders had went down a quarterback last year, no bueno.
Yeah.
That would, I mean, you can't lose a great player anyway, but your quarterback, that's rough. Having Sanders, etc., having more face of the program, Caden Salters comes in for Liberty. That's a really good football player. That's a nice addition.
Yeah.
Do you think the offense is going to change a ton? I mean, he's not going to throw the ball like Shedeur. I'm not going to sit there and say, like, how does this not only help this season, but like long term? Because now this is kind of like a quarterback destination place, portal and high school. What do you think?
Caden changes the game, and they have to change their offense, right? I think what people don't realize about Shedeur Sanders, even though he was sacked 40 times, is he was masking flaws in that offense in a different way, right? He's evading the rush, and he's making very difficult throws downfield. Caden Salter is going to evade the rush. He's one of the best scrambling quarterbacks in college football. So you have to change your offense to fix that, or to adjust to that. So Caden Salter probably doesn't have the same pocket presence as Shedeur. That being said, he's probably one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in college football. So you can actually integrate the RPO, and that R, which stands for run, is actually a possibility with the quarterback. You could actually run the quarterback now. Realistically, you use him in the run game. I think he'll mask the issues they have at offensive line, and it could also open up the run game from the running back's perspective, because for the past couple of years, Colorado has had one of the least effective run games in college football. So if you're Pat Shurmur, you look at this unit and you go, okay, I have a quarterback who's as fast as any quarterback in the country. I have 3 really good running backs who we didn't utilize or commit to utilizing, and we're probably going to have a brand new offensive line outside of a couple guys. So you have to change things up, and you have a brand new receiver core. You have to change things up. You can't just count on Shedeur and Travis to bail you out, or LeJonte Wester for that matter. Like, you have to scheme things differently.
Yeah, I think that the offense is going to be vastly different, just like you do. And I also think that while I'm a big fan of Julian Lewis, there's another freshman that I mentioned a little bit ago that I think is going to have a big impact. We're going to talk about that next here on The Portal. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to make it even more exciting than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded, PrizePicks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. Here's how it works. Pick more or less on at least 2 players' projections, and if you're right, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. PrizePicks even has a free pick for the big game where Patrick Mahomes only needs to throw for 1 yard to win. Pair that with 1 more correct pick, and you're cashing out. This week, I'm looking at the board, and I'm selecting more for Travis Kelce. Obviously, a big fan of Mahomes because he always tries to get him the ball, and his receiving yards for more quarterback passing yardage. What I love the most, though, is the fast, safe withdrawals. When you win, cash is in your account in as little as 15 minutes. Check out the promo tab to tail any of the super sweet Millie winners, big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Quentin Gibson is a player that I think is going to make a quick impact.
Yep.
Deion has shown through his first couple of years in Boulder, slot receivers are going to get the ball. He's going to find ways to do it. I had a chance to see Quentin. My God, is he fast. Like, he just is fit for what Deion does.
Yeah.
Now, I know that, like you said earlier, he's not afraid to play freshman. He's proved it. If you play a left tackle at freshman,
yeah,
I mean, you'll play about it because that's risky. That's really risky. Slot receiver is a whole nother game. Quentin's not the biggest dude, but he's super shifty, has good hands. He played a big-time football in Dallas. and he's a guy that knows what it's like to return kicks. They're going to find a different way to get him the ball quite a bit. Name a few other guys besides Quentin that you think have a chance to get on the field, freshman class. It could be anybody. It's a pretty good group, not a big group, but it's a pretty good group.
Yeah, first of all, I love the Quinn pick because obviously he reminds me of Kavonte Turpin back in the day from TCU. Where it's like you got to get him touches because he's fast as hell, and even though he's tiny, he's just going to make plays. So love the pick there. I'm going to go with the second highest ranked player in the class, Chauncey Gooden, interior offensive lineman, 6'4", 320 as a senior in high school. Pretty big dude, right? He already looks the part, and Colorado needs offensive line help. We were talking about it off air. Colorado's offensive line continuity, which is what percent of the snaps the starter played. Left guard, the starter played 56% of the snaps. Right guard, 46.49. So not great, right? You need someone who could come in, be consistent, and we just talked about it. He was okay with playing Jordan Seaton at left tackle, which is the most important position across the line, arguably. And so having someone next to him, or even if it's at right guard, so you don't have two youngsters next to each other, I think Coach Prime takes that chance. And then also, I look at a guy like London Merritt. I don't know if he's going to be the starter right away, the Ohio State commit or the guy they flipped from Ohio State, because they do have some talented defense linemen they brought in, but they lose a guy like BJ Green, who's an all Big 12 pass rusher. And I think if you're Colorado, you want to sort of get these guys their sea legs under them. So I don't know if he's going to be the starter, but I do think he's going to get some important snaps and get a chance to maybe come in on third downs and rush the quarterback a few times. And so those are my two picks outside of Quentin.
Switching over to the portal, this is something that I've started to look at a little bit. Colorado and several other teams, and obviously they are the portal kings.
Yeah.
A guy that I think is underrated, depending on how they want to use him. He only played like 4 games this past year for Bama, is Jaheim Otis. Yeah. I met him a few years ago at the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game, and he was 360 or more. And he's a guy that you just can't move with one body. Colorado needs help up front to be better against the run consistently. That Kansas game, I'm still remembering that. That's the one game their defense would probably like to have back. Otis, maybe somebody else. Is there anybody that you think that the Buffs are going to use from the portal right away that they almost just have to play because they've got such a glaring need?
Yeah, I think I look at Martavius French, the linebacker transfer from the University of Texas San Antonio. Colorado had a weird linebacker situation where they brought back Levante Bentley he was from the original 2023 class. Okay. And he wasn't that good. 2023, no one was on that defense, honestly. He comes back and he's one of the best linebackers in the country. They also brought in Nikhai Hill-Green, who was the Michigan via Charlotte transfer. They formed one of the best linebacker duos in college football in the run game. And Nikhai is off to Alabama. Levante, I believe, is out of eligibility. So you need a linebacker to come in right away and play right away, and that's Martavius French. He had a really big year at UTSA. I don't think a lot of people were tuned into Roadrunners football, but he's a guy that Colorado needs to come in, start right away, be productive, help them slow down the run, and so that way they could prevent games like that Kansas game that we talked about, or the Kansas State game, who kind of used the rushing attack to bully them around.
Kylan Salter is another kid that's a linebacker, came out of TCU. I don't know a ton about him, but they've had some good players over the years. There's going to be different guys that get a shot at the defense. Before I get you out of here, my other question for you, Kevin, is this. Colorado gets a ton of attention because of Deion and all that stuff. What do they have to do now to be consistent? And like overall, I think it's just, as I said in my opening statement, they got to recruit high school better, and I think they're going to. They've started to prove that. Is there anything else from a program perspective that you want to add that you think they need to do? Because you're so close with what's going on with that program. Yeah,
I think schematically, they have to find their identity. I don't know if I won't say they didn't have an identity last year, but it felt very Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter oriented, which, I mean, why wouldn't it be? Like, they're two of the best players in college football. But now that you don't have them, you have to tell recruits, hey, this is what we want to do. And I don't know what that is yet because we've yet to see them have to have that problem or have to solve that problem. But I would say it's that. And also, and this is very cliche, and you're not going to give me an award for saying this, they have to continue to win games, right? You can't have 9-4 season and then kind of fall off and just be a flash in the pan, because that's when recruits start to lose interest, right? That's when recruits start to go, well, you don't have that one season, and then you start looking at it and it's like, well, they had Shedeur and Travis that year, and you can't allow recruits or transfers to lose confidence in your goal. your program and what you're preaching. Otherwise, you're kind of a lost cause out there. So they need to make sure that they stay consistent with their schematics and find that identity. And they also need to win games consistently.
That sounds like a plan to me. If you've got a system that you can really count on and not just have to handle the situation with Travis, obviously he was unbelievable. I still can't believe how many snaps that dude played. It's really
when I hear people say they played like someone played 40 snaps in the game, I'm like, that's it. Like Travis has me like numb to like people playing a lot of snaps because he was playing 100.
Yeah, Travis is almost sweating now, you know.
Yeah. Like, oh, that was the first quarter for him.
It's really unbelievable.
Yeah.
But Kevin, thank you very much. Tell everybody where they can find your work.
Yeah, you can find me over at Athlon Sports. Like I'm covering every college football team and every sport under the sun. And then, of course, at Locked On Buffs, we have daily episodes where we're doing some interviews with some of the transfers. We're talking about all the latest Coach Prime rumors and noise and excitement. So come check me out.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
You can subscribe here to the podcast for the portal. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, or just about anywhere else. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. We will see you again soon on the portal.